Welcome back to Fast Keto, my friends. I am so thrilled to have Luis Villasenor joining us on the podcast. Again, today, this is his second time on the show, and we're talking all about how to get lean, building lean mass, and his personal journey in recovering from anorexia and going from heavy restriction and fasting to learning how to build lean mass, build muscle. And he's also known for the well-known slogan, chase results, not ketones. And he has been putting forward this modified version of keto with a bigger emphasis on proteins for many, many years now. And a lot of the rest of us are catching up to that now. So I really enjoyed the episode today with Luis. He shared so many wonderful tips on how to build more lean mass and how to burn fat and the best way to do it. And he explains a lot of the science behind it as well. So I know you guys are going to love this episode today with Luis Villasenor. All right, Luis, thank you so much for being back here with us on Fast Keto today.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa, for having me. I'm Luis Villasenor from Mexico City, and I've been doing keto for basically 20 years now. And the abridged version of my story is that I run an enterprise called Ketogains, which is based on evidence and science, and is mostly based a lot on my experiences and a lot of experiences from our clients. I founded Ketogains about 8 years ago. And yes, I'm a nutritionist, a personal trainer. I mostly study nutrition on the side of low-carb diets, and also a little bit of exercise science, bodybuilding, powerlifting, etc., mostly out of a passion that I found out when I was a kid. And this is part of the reason why I founded Ketogains. When I was a kid, I was the classic fat kid, not overly fat, but chubby enough to be picked up at school. And so I was very bad at sports. And one day I decided to change that. My mother took me to a nutritionist. The nutritionist was an overweight lady, so it didn't make any sense to me. And I decided to take things on my own hands because, of course, the protocol, the diet that she gave me didn't work. Like I always gamed the system. It didn't really give me results. I wasn't really motivated. And so I lost my initial weight by traditional means, which is I didn't know what I should eat, but I knew that I should eat less of that. And I started, doing a little bit of cardio, especially when I watched TV or when I played video games. I promised myself that I would not sit on the TV unless I was, on a bike, or I had this machine that's called Nordic Track, that it's like if you were skiing. So I got that on a garage sale for very cheap. So that's when I started doing some kind of exercise. Then I discovered weights via like an Arnold Schwarzenegger magazine, and I decided to emulate that. I'm a child of the 80s, so in between that and He-Man, all the 80s movies are buff guys, all the cartoons have like He-Man and things like that. So I was very much inspired by them. And so I did lose a lot of weight. Then in college, I went through a period of the depression. I wasn't really, like everybody probably at that time, gone through changes. I was in trouble with some girls. I wasn't really feeling well probably mentally. And I wanted to gain muscle, but I didn't want to get fat again. And so being in a bad place, I ended up being anorexic. And what I was doing at the time, I don't recall if I told you, but I was having for breakfast like a bowl of all bran, basically fiber, with some milk. Then I would have 12 or something, a very small salad, like it could fit in the palm of my hand, just shredded lettuce, and probably less than 1,000 grams of chicken. And that was basically my meal for the whole day. I was so tired, I used to go to sleep at 6 p.m. just because I didn't want to think about food anymore. So that was a way for me to cope with it. So and it was like that for over a year. And then I noticed that I was looking very gaunt. And one day, like that was for me the hard stop to this, because I really, like when you are in a place like this, you really don't notice. I put on a pair of jeans, and the bottom part, it reached almost my knees. And it was like, did this knee shrunk? and I looked at the size, and they were my little brother's jeans that, for whatever reason, I had in my pack. And it's like, what the hell? Like, my brother at that time was 7 years old. So those were like, imagine that. I currently weigh, just for reference, 75 kilos. And I am 167 centimeters tall. So 5'6" and about 160 something pounds. At my lowest weight, which is, I have it on my head because that's the moment I put a pair of jeans, I went and weighed myself. I was 48 kilos. So that's, I have pictures of that at a time, just a few, because I didn't like that much how I looked. But yeah, I looked gowned very much like one of those Calvin Klein models that are super skinny. And the worst part is that I could see my ribs and my rib cage, my column from behind, but I still had a gut. So I was skinny. So for me, that was like, I have to get out of this. I lost all the muscle that I had built, and I wasn't really looking at myself, in a healthy way. So at that moment, I said, I want to gain muscle back. I want to gain my energy back. And this, what I'm doing currently, is probably going to kill myself. So at that moment, I had also changed college, and that helped me go through, get to a better place mentally. I started to get great grades. I started to socialize more. And in the new college that I went to, they had an open, they called open class format. So I could go and join any class even without being enrolled. I only got credits, of course, for the ones I was enrolled with. So I was studying marketing at the time, but I got in a lot of classes of nutrition. My passion was nutrition in a way, but didn't want to study real nutrition because for me it was not a way to make a living. I didn't want to be a nutritionist and stay, in a booth sitting all day waiting for patients. I'm more like an entrepreneur. I want to make money other ways. And also, again, with experience of my fat nutritionist, I didn't want to. That was my image, right? In a lab coat, sitting all day, giving papers with a diet to people. That's not what I had envisioned. But I was very curious and wanted to learn how to improve myself and be healthy and so on. And so I took some classes on the side. And then I also went to the library and read everything I could regarding diets, and started using internet. At the time was something latently new, and started navigating bulletin boards to see how bodybuilders actually manage to grow muscle and stay lean most of the time. And upon researching, I came up onto what is called an anabolic diet, which is basically keto for bodybuilders. It made a lot of sense to me because I had a little more background on nutrition at the time. And basically what the main points were, you eat carbs when you want to overly grow, but when you want to maintain or go into lean gain mode, you just eat proteins, vegetables, and the fat that comes along with it. So it's like we're talking about a book written in the late 70s, early 80s, early 90s. So you have the Anabolic Diet by Dr. Mario Di Pasquale. And then you have Greg Duquesne and the Body Opus, which are very much about the same book, were written with different words and different findings. And then the latest version of the same diet, like all three authors followed up on the work of one another. You have the Ketogenic Diet by Lyle McDonald, which is also, again, the explanation, and in my view, is one of the best written books regarding ketogenic diet in the science. And this was a book written in the early 90s. So people now look at all these books and go look at the original one. 99% of all the questions and the studies and everything are in that book, and people don't know that book. But also the good thing about that book is that it also has modifications, especially geared towards athletes and bodybuilders. So I started experimenting with what the book taught, started researching more on my side and applying that especially to myself. And what I found is that I recovered fairly quickly. I gained all the muscle that I had lost back and more. I managed to juggle college, training, working, etc. And in a way, that was very much my lifestyle, was my secret. I didn't really tell anybody what I was doing nutritionally wise or training wise, especially because every time that I tried to explain the diet, and you got the same response that probably a lot of people 5-6 years ago got, because right now keto is very popular and most people sort of understand what it is. And at first they may have dismissed it, but because a lot of people are getting results, like even though some may believe it's a fad diet, it works, especially even if you half do it or half-ass it, it does work much better than other protocols for most people. But then again, so every time that I tried to talk about the diet, and especially because I didn't have the proper knowledge to explain it better, I always got pushback, right? Especially I have doctors in my family, and I got the usual, but you're going to get kidney disease, or you're going to get a heart attack, or you're going to die, or I've read it that you cannot do it for more than 3 months. Like I have an aunt that is an MD, right? And I remember one of my first conversations with her, and she was like, you cannot do that diet more than 3 months. Like, it was like, okay, so what happens at the 4th month? He was like, I don't know. I was like, why are you saying that? Well, that's what they said on the studies. Like, can you show me the studies? And she was like, no, I read that on journals. Like, you could not go and look for journals on the internet. Like, she had to go and look at the journals that came via mail every month and so on. So of course she never followed. And then the next year, because I saw her every year at family gatherings, like, well, it's been a year and I haven't died, and my blood panels and everything are correct, and I feel well. It's like, well, just, be careful and whatever, right? And so on and so on. And like every year that I see her, I still go and joke with her. It's like, I'm not dead yet, and it's been 20 years. And so, but it's like you get the pushback. So I did this on the side. I never told anyone. And upon, I was more savvy on internet. I started visiting Reddit, which is a forum in a way. And I found out that there was just a subreddit, which is a sub-forum for keto. And I said, oh, this is a diet that I've been doing, so I'm not the only crazy people doing this diet. And I started, helping people that were asking about training and nutrition, and not just doing the classic therapeutic version of keto. And so I managed to start giving advice there. And for those not in the known, in Reddit, how it works is that you ask a question and you get a lot of answers. The most helpful answers get voted up, so they're more visible. And you gain like internet points, right? So you become like a knowledge person in a way. And so people started asking me direct questions. And some of them were like, well, this is easy for me, or there were a lot of them that were fairly complex. And that I actually had to go back and research and said, I don't know what the hell these people are talking about. They're like people super intelligent here that are asking things that I had never thought of. And I cannot be, just spewing nonsense. And so that made me realize that I needed to increase my knowledge more. And in a way, Reddit becomes, in my case, like sort of a game. I've always thought that the best way to learn something is to become a teacher, right? Because especially this way, they ask you questions that you don't know, and you have to better yourself. So because I like to research everything, if you give me a hint or if there's something that sparks my interest, no matter how ridiculous it might be, I have to go and find it and find the answer. Otherwise, I cannot sleep for days. Like I have it here nagging in my head. So I went and researched more about diet, nutrition, especially in the sense of ketogenic or low-carb diets. And so I started to collect very much. I have probably over 1,000 studies related to keto, low-carb, and so on. And I became friends with the moderators of keto, and so much that they made me a moderator of the forum. And one day, one of them said, listen, Luis, you give lots of good advice, but it's a bit conflicting to what normally people say. So why don't you let me create something for you? And a couple of days later, he was like, hey, so there's a forum that I created just for you, so you can give the advice in a way, however you want, without conflicting people or giving advice that may be different to what we're giving here. And so that's how Keto Gains was born. I started just using the keto version that I had modified to improve optimal, basically body composition. So basically not just lose weight, but lose body fat, and how to incorporate strength training or other types of exercises to improve your health and your physical appearance, right? And from just having 10 questions on how do I do the diet, what do I need to start, etc., it became like right now your printed should be over probably 100 pages long. And we've been improving and bettering the guide as we go along. And from that forum, it then became a company. And yeah, now we have 3 actual companies related to it. And we have probably about, as today, 24 full-time employees all over the world.
That's fantastic. I love how organic all of that growth was, and that's really amazing. What do you say to people who would ask you or challenge you on your approach and say, well, it's not keto because to be keto, it has to be really, restricted in protein?
Well, I have an actual saying, which is part of our company, which is chase results and not ketones. And the point is, a lot of people, and I'd say probably like 90% by my estimations based on the clients we get and the people that join our group, do keto for fat loss. So your goal is fat loss, not ketosis. Right. So why the hell are you, being a little bit hard on the term if you are in a deep state of ketosis or not, whether you're getting results? You want to lose fat, and a lot of times people get lost in the way and the woo of keto, and then they want to go super high ketones and whatever. And the point is, a lot of people don't understand, and they get just stuck in a context, in a concept. And here's the deal. First of all, and I'm very glad because I was a pioneer and big pusher on this, I started pushing a higher protein version of keto since I started, and I always got the same pushback. It's not keto because you're not high fat and protein is higher than 25%. Nonsense. The main driver to be on ketosis is eating low carb. That's it. It doesn't matter if you eat high fat. It doesn't matter actually how much protein you eat. Protein has very little effect on ketosis. It may have a higher effect on the diabetics, but guess what? Diabetics actually need more protein than a healthy individual because they are leucine resistant. And yeah, you probably are in a deeper state of ketosis with low protein, but guess what? You will eventually lose mass, and that's the way to sarcopenia. And there's no point in losing weight if a big chunk of that weight you're losing is also muscle. So you're doing this for health and for losing weight. Don't end up like I did. Yeah, you're going to end up probably skinny, but skinny fat. So you're just ending being a smaller version of the fat you. Mm-hmm. And I know that for some people that may be quite overweight, for them it's an advancement. But muscle is not just for looks and for looking strong. Muscle is just it's a metabolic hormone, and it's one of the main predictors for overall health and how long you're going to live and in what quality of life you're going to get. You have low muscle, you have a very low percentage of survival any serious disease. Muscle is a repository for amino acids. Basically, it's your health bank pension. That's how I like to call it, or your health bank account. It also helps you to improve bone density. If you fall, you're going to get better chances of surviving any fall or any accident. It also helps with hormones. It helps with metabolic rate, etc., etc., etc. It's not just something for looks. It's a functional organ. So, yeah, I don't really agree with that. And results after results, we have over 600, 500 clients per month. And by using our modified protocol, all of them, and we're talking mostly women, because that's also what people say, your protocol only works for bodybuilders. Sorry, that's BS. 90% of my clients are females over 40 with any sort of metabolic issue like PCOS. They are getting into menopause, etc., etc., etc. Diabetics, of course. Our protocol works, and it's higher protein version of ketogenic diets. And I don't give a crap if you are in full ketosis or in deep ketosis or just have barely enough ketones or no ketones at all. my goal is to get you healthier and to look good and to feel incredible.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And you have had that slogan for a long time, as long as, I've been aware of you and your work. And, I think you're absolutely right. Keto really is defined by the absence of carbohydrate intake. So, it doesn't make sense to chase ketones when it's just another fuel in your blood. Why would you? We just always think, well, some ketones are good, then more means better.
Exactly.
And it's just a logical fallacy because you don't want to have high blood sugar.
Here's something very important that people, again, the more you know, the more realize this. At first, you are going to have higher ketones because you are not adapted to them and you're new to this diet. The body does adapt both at a cellular level and an enzyme level, etc., right? And there are some cases which, of course, higher ketones may be desirable, such as when you are treating, again, therapeutic keto, when you're treating neurodegenerative disease, or you're going through an experimental cancer therapy, etc. Or if you are, one of those biohackers that wants to experiment with, is this feeling that higher ketones, like how they make you feel mentally. That's a fair point. But for body recomposition, for fat loss, and this is something that happened to me again, and when I started talking about it, a lot of people also shut me down, and now it's actually a lot of people are talking about. As your body adapts, you will, no matter what you do, have lower ketone levels in your blood. And this doesn't mean that you are not keto anymore, or that keto is not working for you, or whatever. What it means is that you're more efficient. It actually means it's better. Less ketones up to a point, and depending the context, actually is better. Why? In my case, it doesn't matter if I fast for 40 hours, I've done it. If I eat high fat just for the day, if I lower my protein, increase my protein, even if I eat carbs, I always hover around 0.4, 0.5, 0.7-ish, like just the barely threshold defined as nutritional ketosis, again, no matter what I do. And why? Because my body, let's remember that ketones are a byproduct of fat burning. So it's not like once you have ketones, you burn fat. No, ketones are the end result. They're the last thing to ever appear when you are on fat loss mode. Even if you are not eating low carb, most people, like if you're not openly eating every 3 hours and not eating a super high carb meal, if you're eating whole foods, even if it's higher on carbs, and if you do 2 or 3 meals a day, you will have ketones in your blood at any given time. Again, because once you burn fat, and one of the end process or metabolic results are ketones. They are used by your body. It's natural. That's also a thing that some people don't understand. Think that ketones are dangerous, or you are in a dangerous starvation state. So no. So ketones are one of the end products of fat burning, and your body becomes more efficient at using them. What this means is when you're new to the diet and you're probably eating a super high version of keto, or even if it's not a super high version, you have a lot of body fat, etc., different things, your body burns fat, and then these ketones accumulate because your body does not now know how to use them efficiently. Ketones are used by mitochondria, are used by some body tissues, and they are not prepared to use this kind of fuel. That's it. So of course you have higher readings. The more you are in this diet, the more your body improves upon using them. You create improve the mitochondrial density, you create more mitochondria, your muscles become more proficient at using ketones, and so your body just creates barely enough ketones that you need and uses them at the same rate. So you're basically using this fuel all the time. So instead of it accumulating, you create 10 and you use, let's say, 8 or 9, and then you create another 10. So it becomes a very efficient process, rather than creating them, accumulating them, and I cannot use them, so they keep accumulating. So this is not better. Actually, being here is better. And that was something that happened to me 8 years ago, and started explaining that and asking, and people were, no, that's because you're eating way too much protein. No, that's because you're eating way too little fat. No, that's because you have very little fat. You need more fat. and things like that. And it was, no, it doesn't make any sense. I always have, like, if I fast, I have ketones. If I don't fast, I have ketones. If I eat carbs, I have the same ketones. Like, and I started researching more on mitochondrial and cellular function and so on. And yeah, like, it makes perfect sense. My body is adapted. It uses ketones efficiently. I talked this with Rob Wolf. He said, I have the same issue. I talked the same with Mark Sisson, and he was like, yeah, I have the same issue. And Tate Naiman, and name a lot of the same people doing the diet that actually do some research upon it, and they all came to the same conclusion. As you are more adapted, your body is more efficient.
Yes, and our bodies are so intelligent. You just assume that's what they would do. And I remember when I first started keto, I had ketones like 6.0, 7.0. And for me, it's been, 6 years later, and I really barely register them anymore, but my body is making them as needed. It's no longer like overproducing them, and it's using them. So I used to be really skeptical when I heard people say that, but I've definitely seen it for myself. And I know people are still skeptical about that. But it's just physiology. Your body's just going to adapt and stop overproducing,
Exactly. It makes a lot of sense, like you said, biologically. And then everyone that's been doing keto for quite a while, not really jumping in and out and so on, usually gets to the same point. Of course, there are some variances, but for example, we're talking about if you eat a super high protein diet and you will not get ketones. A lot of my most overweight clients, which are on a higher version of protein and are low fat, so they're nearing what is not commonly called a PSMF, a protein sparing modified fast, not so low in fat, but let's say 70, 80 grams of fat per day, but they are very overweight and eating 200 grams of protein. I'm talking about a big person. They have super high ketones. Like, then why? It's like, well, it's again logical. This person is burning its own body fat. That's what we want. And that, again, a byproduct of burning your own body fat is ketones. And because this person is fairly new to ketosis, well, that person is swimming in ketones.
Yeah.
It's not as efficient as using them, but it's burning fat. So it is ketogenic. On the other side, someone that eats very thin, I would not put them on a super high protein diet because protein is really not for energy. It's more like it's a building block of our body. And yeah, it has some thermogenic benefits that improve fat burning up to a point. But if the person is already lean, well, have them on a higher fat diet, of course. And that person, because if you have that person on a higher protein diet and low fat, yeah, in this case, you will probably not have much ketones, but even if the person is new, not because the diet is not working, it's because there's no fat, there's no dietary fat, there's no body fat. So there's nothing really, there's no place to produce those ketones from, right?
So looking back, I'm sure you've reflected on this a lot over the years, but seeing as fasting has become so popular, I want to ask what your opinion is on fasting and the fasting trend, but also before that, why do you think when you were doing somewhat of like very heavy restriction, not total fasting, but something pretty close to it, why do you think that you lost so much body fat everywhere but your stomach? And then why were you able to lose it instead by building lean mass and properly fueling yourself?
So here's the deal. Like I said, I've been doing keto for almost 20 years. I'll be turned 20 basically this November. People were talking about fasting as something new. I was fasting at the time when I was doing my 400 calorie diet. That's it. I was like one of the original fasters in a way. I didn't even know that it was a thing called fasting. It was just called not eating. Here's the deal. Protein is essential. You cannot get what happened. Like protein is not just for muscles, and that's what people like oftenly believe. Right. Protein is essential. It's basically our whole body is made of protein, not just muscles. All our organs, our bones, our cells, our skin, our enzymes are made of protein. Protein is basically, if you don't eat protein, you die. That's it. And so what happened is, I was doing fasting in a way. I was probably eating 20 30 grams of protein a day at most. Well, what happens if you're doing fasting? They say like, now fasting promotes human growth issue. You can, go to the gym and get jacked by fasting. That's bullshit. Sorry. It doesn't happen like that. Otherwise, you will see all the kids in Africa, being jacked and all the time. They lift stones and whatever. And no, that's not the purpose of human growth hormone. What I basically did is I ate myself from the inside out. My body needed amino acids to, create basic, survive its basic functions. We talk a lot about autophagy. Autophagy doesn't happen just when you fast or just when you train or whatever. Autophagy happens all the time. Yeah, you can increase it by fasting. You can increase it also by strength training. Actually, strength training improves autophagy more than fasting, for those that don't know. Keto also promotes autophagy or increases it. But what I was doing wrong at the time is basically I was starving myself to death. I fasted myself to death by not replenishing the amount of protein that I needed on a daily basis. What my body did is took the protein it needed from my from my muscles to make my organs survive. And that's why I became skinny fat. The stomach that I had was basically because I had no muscle, I didn't have abs, and I had probably because being overstressed, also cortisol makes you retain the little fat you may have on certain key areas, such as your stomach. So it was a combination of stress, was a combination of not eating anything, of probably my hormones were out of whack because I also started losing a lot of my hair. So it was basically a train wreck. So yeah, basically I ate my own muscle. And regarding human growth hormone, and everyone that probably is hearing me saying, no, that's a lie, and this guru said that fasting improves human growth hormone and that prevents you from losing muscle, blah, 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 to a point. The thing here is that in adults, human growth hormone, the function, and you can look it up in internet. I have the studies, I can send them to you for anyone who is interested. In children, human growth hormone, yes, it does increase basically any tissue of your body. It makes it grow. But once you hit puberty, its function changes. Basically what it does is it's more so a catabolic hormone. And yeah, it may prevent you from losing muscle, especially paired with strength training. But again, to a point, the main function of human growth hormone, as I said before, it's a catabolic hormone once you pass puberty. What it does is, let's see our organs and muscles and everything like Lego blocks. Our body doesn't have a repository for amino acids. Our body can store glucose. Our body can store fat. Our body can store protein. There's not a place where our body stores protein. What it does with the protein you eat, with the amino acids, is that it breaks them up apart into its smaller parts, which are amino acids, and then uses them for all its functions. And then whatever is left, which only about 10-15% of the protein you eat, will be used for muscle growth, is, let's say, placed in your muscles, or it creates muscles. But if you don't eat enough protein to meet your body daily needs, because your body needs to replenish protein on a daily basis, you die at a cellular level every day and produce more hormones and so on. Your body needs quite a lot of protein just to stay, let's say, at the same level. If you have extra, yeah, it will say, okay, I'm gonna add some to lean muscle if I'm training or whatever. But if you eat less than your body actually needs, what does your body do? It says, okay, so I'm gonna take some protein from your muscles. That's it, because I need that just to meet my daily requirements. And muscles have a very low priority in regards to our body. In regards to your body priority, the first thing that are more important are your organs, your brain, your heart, lungs, kidney, etc. That's top priority. That you need to survive or you die. Then enzymes and hormones, and at the very least, your muscles. So if you don't meet your daily protein requirements, eventually your body starts to shave off amino acids from your muscles, and that's why you start to get sarcopenia or cachexia. Basically, you lose meat. Actually, I just gave a talk yesterday with Maria and Craig Emmerich regarding the same issue, how to prevent sarcopenia, especially in the context of ketogenic diets. And That's the issue. I basically ate myself. My body needed amino acids, and because I was not feeding my body enough of them, and not training at the time because I didn't have any energy left, my body ate itself. It took away all the the muscle that I had, and used that for basically survival. And this is why I'm not against fasting. I fast myself on a daily basis, on average 16, sometimes 18 hours. I don't suggest more than that, especially to female clients, especially when you pair that with strength training, especially with cardio, because cardio is catabolic, especially with super big deficits. All of that creates a very, like a super high stress environment that does your body more harm than good. Like, yeah, it's okay to do keto, it's okay to do fasting intelligently, but one of the key things about fasting is, okay, fast and then feast. Fasting by itself has some benefits, but it's not a guarantee for fat loss, very much like with keto. Keto by itself helps adherence, helps with satiety, helps with a lot of health issues, but it's not a guarantee for fat loss. I've had lots of clients that don't lose weight on keto because they're not managing their macros properly, or overeating a lot of fat without paying attention to protein. And the same happens with fasting. So you want to do things right. Yeah. Like get proper macros, prioritize protein, vegetables for macronutrient density. Yeah, you can add fasting if you feel comfortable with it, and it should not be forced. Like I myself, again, do on average 16 hours of fasting. But if I'm one day, for whatever reason, super hungry, I do listen to my body and feed myself, especially a protein. Because I'm not going to feed a craving, right? Because I want to maintain a lean, strong physique. Like if I feed a craving, I have this saying that feed one craving, and it's like feeding a stray cat. You feed one, and then you realize you have 20 more at the door, right? So for me, especially as I have dietary issues in regards to binge eating, anorexia, and so on, that history, it's a fine line to cross. So I try to stay very mindful of what I put in my body and what foods create cravings for me. So I just, it's just my personal recommendation.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think that's a really balanced approach and kind of explains everything. Now, for people who want to lose fat, let's talk a little bit more about body recomposition and why that's a better long-term approach to getting leaner, right? Because you can either lower your body fat and stay the same, or you can increase your muscle mass and then your body fat percentage will go down just by the relative proportion of muscle to fat. So let's talk about what are some of the ways that you recommend to people to lose fat, and can you gain muscle and lose fat at the same time?
Yeah, you can definitely. So here's the point. Some people get lost in the weeds in the sense that they use weight as the main way to track progress. And yeah, it's okay. And it's a very easy way to review, but it's not as easy as people make it out to be. It's a little bit more complicated. And yeah, it should be a way, but not the only way. And what we use with our clients is actually 3 ways to track virtually your body composition. You can do more, especially if you are seeing someone in person, but 3 are basically the least I would use and are sufficient. So yeah, weight is important, but a lot of people don't understand or don't realize that weight, what you weigh on a given day at any given moment, is the result of a lot of different factors, some of which you can control and some of which you cannot really control. So here's an experiment for anyone. Wake up, go to bathroom, and weigh yourself and record that weight. And then weigh yourself after your first meal. And then weigh yourself probably at noon. Weigh yourself again in the afternoon. And then weigh yourself before going to bed in the same day. And you will realize that all throughout the day, you have different weights. And it doesn't mean that you got fat or you got leaner or anything else changed. Basically, a lot of that weight is just the result of what you ate. If you eat half a kilo of steak, of course you're gonna gain at least half a kilo of weight, maybe a little bit less, but on average you're gonna gain about that. Food has weight as well. Water has weight. Like It's super easy. Like you see any people who compete on certain sports, they actually try to lose water before a fight. I have a good friend that does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and last year we were in New York for a competition, and we were the night before. I was forcing him to pee just so that he would make weight, and basically just by peeing, he managed to, and of course other things like doing salt baths and etc. and other tricks. He managed to lose about 300 milliliters of weight of water, which in turn became like 300 something grams, and so he made weight. But just like again, he went and pee, and then he weighed less. So let's not focus just on the weight. It does, like, one thing is the weight, and the other thing is your body composition. And your body composition basically means how much tissue, muscle, organs you have versus fat. Which part of you is lean mass, everything that I just mentioned, and which part of you is fat mass. So body recomposition refers to the term of maintaining or increasing the part of you that is not fat and reducing the part of you that is fat. So a lot of people, when they start doing keto, for example, they go through this honeymoon phase where they lose 10 pounds in 1 week, and they are, it's super motivating and it's great, but let's understand this. Most of that is probably water and glycogen. Glycogen is the carbohydrate that is stored in our muscles, and 1 gram of glycogen is bound to about 3 to 4 grams of water. So depending on how much muscle you have, depending on how big you are, you may lose more or less of this water weight at the beginning of the diet. You really may have not lost any or much fat at all. Basically, it's just water, and that's why if you leave the diet, you immediately gain 5, 8, whatever pounds back. And this is a lot of also why some people say that keto is just a fat diet, and the diet you lose when you leave it, you will get it back. Sorry, the weight. No, like if you don't diet, you are not in a caloric deficit. Of course, you will gain that weight back. I also explain this to my clients. You yourself have 2 types of weight: your high carb weight and your keto weight. And it's the same you. And you can manipulate that in a weekly basis. Like I myself currently weigh now 74 kilos. My non-keto weight is about 80 to 88. If I do a carb load, I can gain 8 kilos. I've done it. It's a very big difference in weight. And did I get fat? No, I didn't get fat. I just put water and glycogen in my body. So again, to explain all of this in a more to get to the point of what I'm trying to say here is your goal when you're trying to lose weight should not be lose weight, should be to lose body fat. And especially if you're doing strength training, and I see this with a lot of people, is one of the things that I have to explain much, like in finer detail, because as a client gets in and doesn't start to see the progress they want in their head, they can start to get demotivated, right? They have an end goal in a number, and I have to explain to them, listen, it's not about losing weight. It's about losing body fat and improving your physique. So look, have abs, have a muscle situations. You look toned here and there. You drop like 5 pant sizes, and you probably just lost 2 kilos. And the client is like, why? I want to weigh 50 kilos. It's like, no, forget about the scale, which is just a number in a way, and let's focus on the big picture. You now, weight the same, or in some cases I've had clients, the same that happened to me. I gained weight throughout the years, but I lost or managed to stay at the same pant sizes. I look much better. I gain muscle. Muscle also weights. So you can stay at the same weight or gain weight or lose weight, but your goal should be to improve your body composition. Again, lose body fat. And to answer the last question that you made is, can you lose body fat and gain muscle at the same time? Yes, you can, given certain contexts. If you have a high body fat percentage, you have a lot of stored energy in your body. So normally you're going to hear that you need calories to create muscle, that you're going to need a surplus, that you cannot create muscle at a deficit. If you have lots of calories in your body, you're not really in a deficit. even if you dietary wise, caloric wise, you're eating less calories that your body needs, energy wise, you may be at a surplus because you have lots of stored energy as body fat. So you're not really in a deficit. People that are at a very low body fat percentage or under, like a super low, of course, for them, it's not going to be possible. But if you're overweight, you can build muscle and lose body fat at the same time. Once you get to a more low body fat level, you can probably eat at maintenance and play with protein and your macronutrient ratios, protein, carbs, and fat. And even then, to a point, you can build some muscle. It's not going to be optimal. You're not going to build as much as if you were eating at a surplus, but it can be done. And if you're super lean, there's no freaking way that you're going to be building muscle because there's nothing to be burned with. Like the three components to build muscle are adequate or enough protein, then the stimulus, which is strength training, and then energy. And you can get energy from carbohydrates to a point from protein, which is not recommended, and from fat. And fat can come from dietary fat or from body fat.
Yes, that's a wonderful explanation. Now, on our last question here, what are some tips that you have for beginners who want to get into resistance training, strength training? You know, if people are wanting to start, what are some like helpful tips or encouragement that you might have?
Sure. So I'm a big proponent of simple and let's call it an enough approach. People get into keto, they get into training, and they go and buy the best tennis shoes, the best pants, the gold premium membership to the gym. Like they buy all the equipment, but they haven't even started, right? My number one advice is just start. You don't have to go overly complicated. Just as with keto, like people go and buy all the keto foods and all the keto ingredients. Keto is super easy. Buy or get whole foods, one protein, basically meat and eggs, one vegetable, and then the fat that naturally comes with the first two, or maybe add a little bit of it to savor and cook it. That's it. 3 things. That's keto. That's how keto should be. Training is the same. Focus on multi-joint compound exercises, which are basically 3. The squat, the bench press, the deadlift. That's all you need to do. If you do those 3 exercises, you're basically training your whole body in a multi-joint format. Now, how do you actually execute these exercises? You can, if you want, I have a free guide on my webpage, which basically takes you by the hand on how to do them. You can do them with weights, or you can do them with your whole body. They are called the functional movements as well. So it's a pull, a push, and a leg exercise. Basically what you do every single day. You push things, you pull things, and you stand up. That's basically what you need to do. That's basically how we were designed to do. Eventually, if you're new and have never exercised it, you can do this basically with your own body, no weights required. Like everybody should be able to do a push-up. Everybody should be able to do an air squat. And for a pull, well, it's just about picking something up with your arms, right? So 3 basic exercises that anybody can do with no equipment or with very limited equipment. And as you like it and you progress, then you just buy a bar and some plates, and you start to gradually increase the weight you are doing. It's actually the best routine, in my opinion, is called 5x5. Anybody can Google it that. Or you can Google Keto Gains 5x5, which is a modified version that we have for free on our website. And it basically teaches you how to do it. And again, the minimum effective dose, which is 2 or 3 times per week. You don't need more.
That's great advice. I want you to just share a little bit about, we'll definitely put all the information about Keto Gains, but what did you learn about electrolytes and their importance and creating your electrolyte company?
For sure. So about 2 years ago, we created, let me show you the logo, Element. An Element is basically an electrolyte drink. I'm actually having coffee with Element right now. And here's the deal. One of the key factors that we found out when coaching so many people, like one of the most common questions it sort of became an in-joke for us because, yeah, 90% of the answers to every single problem people start when they start a diet are related to electrolytes. For real. Like, I have lots of cravings. Well, you need sodium. I have no energy. My muscles hurt. You need sodium and potassium. I have cramps. You need potassium and magnesium. I get dizzy when I wake and when I stand up. You need sodium and potassium. I feel lethargic. You need sodium. I feel thirsty all the time and I'm peeing a lot and I'm drinking 4 liters of water. You need sodium. So it looks like a joke, but yeah, the keto flu, being tired, having lots of cravings, or how to manage cravings, all of this is related to proper electrolyte balance. And just as we had been told, and it's now in our common knowledge that fat was bad, now everybody says sodium is bad. And the point is, to a point, if you're eating a standard American diet or overly processed foods, if you actually go and look at the ingredients, even diet soda, it has sodium in it. So what happens when you are on a high processed food that raises your blood pressure all the time? You already are increasing not enough, but even more than enough electrolytes, mostly sodium. So adding more sodium on top of that, of course, is not going to be good for you. But when you start a whole food diet, not just keto, but paleo, for example, or any like Whole30, any diet that's mostly based on whole foods, not processed foods, you take diet soda away, you take a lot of these foods that are already prepackaged with vitamins, minerals, and sodium artificially, then your body goes into, well, I need the sodium. And people, like, one of the things people tell to me is like, if your diet is so healthy, why do you need to add sodium? It's like, heck, humans have always needed to add electrolytes since ever. That's like, this is like probably anybody who has heard any of my podcasts or any podcast that I've been featured in the last month will hear me say the same thing. The word salary should basically tell us that salt is important. Salary is in Roman, more so Roman soldiers were paid their wages in salt. Salary is a Latin word that basically means your salarium, your payment in salt. All major civilizations, the Chinese, all the cities, Egypt, and many in Europe were built, around lakes, around rivers, but not just because of the water, more so because that water was high in salt. There were salt deposits well around them. A lot of wars were waged around salt. The salt trade has always been super important, but it's just became so common that now it doesn't have much value because you can get it very easily. But again, back then, salt was in some cases more important than gold. So why? Because salt is necessary for survival. The only way to preserve food before the invention of the refrigerator was with salt. Like you want a super healthy way to preserve meat, salt it. Like beef jerky, pemmican, what's the other, beetlong or bitong, which is like another type of jerky. The usual way to preserve meats is with salt. So again, salt is super important and we just forgot about it. And it's one of the main reasons that when we start a ketogenic diet, we feel so bad at the beginning. If you manage salt properly, in most cases, you will not even notice a keto flu. And even more so if you're doing any exercise or strength training or whatever, or living hot weather where you're sweating more profusely. So what happened is that we found that every answer, or almost every answer to I'm feeling bad on keto was related to salt. And the idea basically came out in a podcast with Rob Wolf. I was training Rob Wolf at the time. He hired me for a while to help him improve how he was feeling, because he was trying to do keto, but also trying to do jiu-jitsu. And he wasn't really having the explosive strength and sweating a lot. And he was like, no, keto is really not for me with this sport. And I was like, hey, Rob, I trained for 2 hours. I've trained people who do CrossFit. Let's give me a chance and let's do a modified version of keto that will work for you. And one of the key components that Rob was missing was electrolytes. Basically, we just started adding a little bit of sodium, some sparkling water, a little bit of glucose before his training. And he basically calls me a few days later and was, holy fuck, like this changed how I feel, how I perform, etc. And it's very much a recipe that we've shared ever since we started Ketogains with our clients. Is just do the Ketogains keto rate, which is sparkling water, a little bit of sodium, some mint leaves, cucumber. You can use light salt for potassium. Light salt is a hyposodic salt that is lower in sodium but higher in potassium. You can add any other source of magnesium. It can be natural, or you can get it by a pill. Don't use magnesium oxide, please, because it gives you diarrhea. But in the end, like, it's just combining the three of them in a beverage, and you sip through it all day long, or just get a glass before you're going to be training, and it changes basically your game. And just because of that experience and talking with Rob, we were like, we should, just create something and sell it. And it was like, yeah, no one will buy it. It's just salt. And 2 years later, here we are, currently launching our 3 new flavors.
Nice.
And yeah, it's been incredible. We've also had an incredible response from clients and non-clients, in the sense that, like, people who are not doing keto, because basically helps with everything. Like, electrolytes are indeed a thing, and that's why Gatorade got so big in the first place. So even if you don't do keto, it will help you feel much better, perform better, or just in your everyday life.
Yeah, I've actually found I had to keep increasing my salt as it got so hot here this summer, and I've been exercising more. I just salt everything, like a little bit in my coffee, a little bit in my water, a little bit in my shake, like everything all throughout the day. Just add a little salt to everything, and yeah, it makes such an awesome difference. But you guys were kind enough to send me some, and I got to try it, and it's so tasty too. You just like want to have some because it tastes so good. So congrats.
Let me see if I can hook you up with some of the new flavors. You're gonna love chocolate. Like, I know it sounds weird, like salt with chocolate. Well, now it's a thing. Everybody loves salt with chocolate, salt caramel chocolate, whatever. But I usually have, like you said, salt in my coffee, and so we created an unflavored version. I don't know if I don't recall if we send you an unflavored package as well. But it's just like not overly salty, but it's like, I cannot describe the flavor of the raw version, but it's great to mix with everything. And I usually use that on coffee. And now that we got the chocolate version, it became my favorite. You add that to coffee without anything else, and it just gives you a slight hint of sweetness and cocoa, and of course the salt, and it improves incredibly coffee. It's just like you were having like coffee, like a mocha in a way, without any of the calories, without adding anything else. So it's basically incredible for you, and it's now basically how I like to wake up. It's just hot coffee with a little bit of element, and that's it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I like to have a little like bit of chocolate with some hot water and almond milk at night, and I put salt in it because it just tastes so much better with the salt. So yeah, definitely would love to try that. But we'll put links to LMNT, to Ketogains. You guys have a fantastic Facebook group if you want to tell everyone about it.
For sure. So we currently have about 120,000 people in our private group. It's on Facebook. Just go search Ketogains on Facebook and you'll get directed to it. But everything you see Ketogains in Instagram, Google, Reddit, it's us. And if you want to learn more about electrolytes, do send me a PM, either on Instagram, or you can send me a mail to luis@ketogains.com, and I'll explain more. Or you can go to our website, which is drinklmnt.com. And I'm going to send you a few packages of the new flavors, Vanessa. Mostly, like if you're a chocolate girl, I'll send you a box of chocolate. Because currently we only have like a new sample version of the 3 new flavors, which are like a Mexican flavors based. Ooh. So we have mango chili, which is amazing. We have a lemon habanero. It's more spicy. but it's also like if it's super hot, that with sparkling water, it's a bump. And for when it's cold or in the morning, you can have the chocolate with coffee or by itself, which, as I said before, is now my favorite. I thought that the mango or the habanero was going to be my favorite with the recent iteration, but I just grew a liking to chocolate.
That's awesome. Well, congrats on all of that. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here and share all this great wisdom and advice for people. It's really, really helpful. And I just so appreciate you taking the time to share all your knowledge with us.
On the other side, thank you so much for having me.
All right, guys, thank you so much for watching or tuning into the episode today. I really, really appreciate you guys being here and joining us for another fantastic episode with Luis. He shared so much great advice, and it's just always an honor to have him on the show with us. If you want to try out keto with me as your coach and guide, head over to ketogenicgirl.com. Check out all of the coaching and meal plans that I have available there. I would absolutely love to work with you and help you get the results that you are looking for. So until the next episode, wishing you a fat-filled rest of your day. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with anyone that you think would enjoy it too. And as always, if you have a moment to leave me a rating or review, it means the world to me. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and catch you guys on the next episode.